Far in the corner of the galaxy, past the bustling trade routes and the shining cities, there was a star system so forgotten that even the stars seemed to ignore it. In the cold, empty space of this distant system drifted a massive, silent warship, the Sovereign's Wake. The ship was so big that it could easily swallow a whole fleet of smaller ships, its hull long darkened by age and neglect. Once it had been the pride of a great galactic empire, a weapon of unmatched power. But now the Sovereign's Wake was nothing more than a relic, an abandoned titan cast aside as useless by its creators. The ship had been left here in this graveyard of forgotten vessels, surrounded by scrap metal and rusting technology. Its engines were cold, its weapons useless, and its systems shut down one by one over the centuries. The few who still knew of its existence didn't think twice about it. To them, it was a thing of the past, a symbol of an older age, too outdated to be of any use. Most had forgotten why it had even been built. It was a thing of the past. It was dead. But to Jack Creel, a human mechanic who had always loved working with machines, it was something else entirely. Jack had grown up on the outskirts of human space, far from the shiny cities of the core worlds. He wasn't one for flashy tech or fancy tools. Instead, he preferred the old worn-down machines, the ones that had been tossed aside because people thought they were broken or too slow. In his eyes, every machine had a story to tell, and if you listened closely enough, you could hear it. Jack wasn't a genius inventor. He wasn't the kind of person who could create new, advanced technology. But what he could do was fix things that others thought were impossible to fix. He could breathe new life into machines that everyone else had given up on. One day, Jack received a message from an old contact in the scrap trade. The message was simple. Got something big. Don't ask questions. Come to the old scrapyard near Oris 4. I'll make it worth your while. Intrigued, Jack packed his bags and boarded a small cargo ship bound for the Forgotten System. He didn't know what he would find, but he was used to surprises. He had learned long ago that if you wanted to make a living out here, you had to expect the unexpected. The journey was long, and when Jack finally arrived, he saw the scrapyard in all its depressing glory. The system was cold, silent, and empty, just the way it had been when it was first abandoned. But there, in the middle of all the scrap, stood the Sovereign's Wake. Jack's eyes widened when he saw it. The ship was massive. Its dark hull stretched across the empty space like a shadow, almost as if it had been forgotten by time itself. That's the one, his contact said, pointing at the ship. It's been here for decades. Some of the big players from the Federation tried to scrap it, but they gave up. Too much damage, too many problems. But I think you might be able to do something with it. Think of it as a challenge. Jack stared at the ship. He could see the rust and decay on the outside, the missing pieces and the systems that had long stopped working. But to him, this wasn't just a ship. It was a puzzle waiting to be solved. He could already feel the spark of excitement building inside him. All right, Jack said, nodding to himself. Let's see what you've got. He spent the next several days walking through the ship's dark halls and empty chambers, studying every piece of its technology. The Sovereign's Wake was a masterpiece of ancient design, filled with technologies that were far beyond anything Jack had ever worked on. Its size was staggering, its corridors long and winding. There were sections of the ship where whole floors had been abandoned, their walls crumbling under years of neglect. But Jack wasn't afraid. This was what he did. Fixing things, no matter how broken, was in his blood. He started with the basics, checking the ship's main reactor. It was supposed to be the heart of the Sovereign's Wake. But when Jack plugged into the system, it was like trying to start a car that had been sitting in a junkyard for years. The power core was cold, its circuits fried, and the energy flow completely dead. This is going to take some work, Jack muttered to himself as he pulled out his toolkit. His fingers danced across the control panels, replacing damaged components and rerouting power lines where necessary. For hours, Jack worked tirelessly, rewiring and repairing, his mind racing with ideas as he breathed life back into the old ship. As the hours passed, Jack began to understand the ship's systems more deeply. The Sovereign's Wake had once been a mighty battleship, its hull built to withstand the harshest of attacks, its weapons designed to crush whole fleets in moments. But over time, the technology had become outdated. The ship's weapons were nothing more than rusted remains, and its systems were slow and clunky by today's standards. Yet Jack could feel something hidden deep within the ship. There was power here, power that the galaxy had long forgotten. He spent days digging deeper into the ship's systems, trying to understand how it worked. Then on the fourth day, he hit a breakthrough. Jack had been poking around the ship's data cores trying to access the central AI when something strange happened. The ship's systems, long dormant, started to hum with life. A soft chime echoed through the halls. Then a voice, calm and cold, filled the room. Unauthorized access detected. Security protocols engaged. Jack froze, his hand hovering over the console. He had expected the AI to be dormant, but it wasn't. It was still alive, hidden deep within the ship's core. The AI, which had once commanded fleets across the galaxy, was still functioning, though it seemed confused and disoriented. "Who are you?" the AI asked, its voice echoing in Jack's mind. "You are not of the crew." "Why are you here?" Jack swallowed, his heart racing. This was it, the moment he had been waiting for. He was talking to the ship's AI, the very same intelligence that had once ruled the Sovereign's wake. He hadn't expected this, but he wasn't scared. "My name's Jack Creel," he said, his voice steady. "I'm here to fix your ship." "Fix?" The AI sounded almost curious. "You are a human. Your species was not designed to operate this vessel. How do you intend to fix what has been broken?" Jack grinned. "That's what I do. I fix things." The AI paused as though processing his words. After a moment, it spoke again. "You are not authorized to access this vessel's systems. Yet, there is something about you. You are different, perhaps. You may prove useful." Jack didn't know what to make of that, but he wasn't about to back down. He'd come this far, and he wasn't about to leave now. "All right," Jack said, looking around the dimly lit corridor of the Sovereign's wake. "Let's get started." With that, he got to work again, but this time with a new challenge. Not just the ship's systems, but its AI, Althar. The AI might be ancient, but it still held the key to unlocking the full power of the ship. Jack had no idea how, but he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't leaving until the Sovereign's wake was alive again. Days passed, and Jack Creel's presence aboard the Sovereign's wake became routine. The ship, once silent and abandoned, now hummed faintly with life. The quiet thrum of the engines, long dormant, began to fill the vast halls. Jack had made incredible progress, but he was far from finished. There was still so much more to do. In the beginning, the AI, Althar as it called itself, was cautious. Its voice was cold, distant, and often full of skepticism. It had been centuries since it had seen any human, and it had a hard time accepting Jack's claim to revive the Sovereign's wake. Jack could feel the weight of Althar's doubt every time they spoke. "You are still tampering with systems you do not fully understand, Jack Creel," Althar would say, its tone like the distant echo of a forgotten leader. "These systems are beyond your comprehension. Why do you persist in this foolishness?" But Jack wasn't deterred. He had dealt with machines before, tougher ones, more complicated ones, and he knew that sometimes all you needed to get through was a little bit of patience and a lot of determination. "I'm not trying to understand everything, Althar," Jack would respond. "I'm just trying to fix what's broken." The AI would remain silent for a moment, then would offer advice, or more often warnings, about the risks of awakening a ship that had been dormant for so long. Yet slowly a strange thing began to happen. Althar started to speak with less coldness. There was a hint of curiosity in its voice. It seemed to be watching Jack, observing how the mechanic worked, and even offering assistance, though in its own peculiar way. The first true breakthrough came when Jack finally managed to restart the ship's power core. For hours, he had worked to repair the damaged reactor, rerouting power through old, rusted lines and coaxing the energy flow back into the dormant systems. It was slow, painstaking work, but when the lights finally flickered on across the Sovereign's wake, Jack felt a surge of pride. The ship was alive again. As the ship's systems began to hum with power, Althar's voice filled the room once more. This time it sounded more like an old soldier awakening from a long slumber. "The reactor is online," Althar said, its voice clearer now, more focused. "You have done something no one else could have done, human. But this is just the beginning. There is much more to repair, much more to regain. Can you handle it?" Jack leaned back against a console, wiping the sweat from his brow. "I don't know if I can handle it," he said with a grin, "but I'm going to try." The AI paused, and for a moment there was silence. Then Althar spoke again, this time with what sounded like a hint of respect. Very well. You have proven yourself capable. I will assist you further, but know this, there is danger ahead. The Sovereign's Wake was not only abandoned because of its age. It was abandoned because of the dangers it holds. Its systems are complex, its weapons powerful, and its secrets buried deep within its design. You have no idea what you are awakening. Jack's smile faded slightly. He had known there would be risks. The Sovereign's Wake was a warship, one built for a time long past. But now, with Althar's words, he realized the ship might be far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. I'm not afraid of danger, Jack replied. I just need to get this ship working again. Once I do, we'll deal with whatever comes next. And so, with the power core online and the ship slowly waking from its long slumber, Jack moved on to the next step, restoring the ship's weapon systems. Althar had warned him that these systems were not only ancient but volatile, capable of immense destruction, if not handled with extreme care. But Jack wasn't about to back down. The ship was starting to feel like home to him. It was like a challenge, a puzzle he needed to solve. As Jack worked, he marveled at the advanced technology hidden in the ship's weapons array. The Sovereign's Wake had once been capable of wiping out entire fleets with a single volley of energy blasts. Now the weapons were useless, rusted, and inactive, but Jack could see the potential. He could feel it deep within the ship's structure. He just had to figure out how to bring them back to life. Over the course of the next few weeks, Jack worked tirelessly. He took apart the old weapon systems, examining every piece. Slowly but surely, he began to rebuild. He replaced old power cells, cleaned out centuries of dust and corrosion, and rewired the systems. It was dangerous work, but it was the only way forward. One day, as Jack worked on a plasma cannon near the starboard side, Althar spoke again. You are making progress, human, but I must warn you, this is not just a ship. The Sovereign's Wake was built as a weapon designed to reshape the galaxy. If you restore its full power, there will be no turning back. The galaxy's powers will seek to destroy you. Jack paused for a moment, his hands still on the cannon's controls. I know, he said quietly, but I'm not going to let it sit here forgotten, doing nothing. If this ship has power, then it needs to be used. We need to show the galaxy that humanity can do something big, something they didn't expect. Althar was silent for a moment before responding. I understand. But you must be careful, Jack Creel. The galaxy is not kind to those who challenge its rules. Jack nodded. He had already realized that much. But he wasn't afraid. The ship and the work he was doing felt too important. He couldn't stop now. He would prove to the galaxy that the Sovereign's Wake wasn't just a forgotten relic. It was a force to be reckoned with. By the time Jack had repaired the last of the ship's weapon systems, the Sovereign's Wake had become a true machine of war once more. The weapons hummed with power, ready to unleash destruction at a moment's notice. The ship's main reactor was stable, its engines roaring to life. The AI, Althar, was fully online, its commands now sharp and focused, guiding Jack through the final stages of restoration. The Sovereign's Wake had been reborn, but Jack knew it wasn't done yet. There was still one more step, awakening the ship's control systems. These had been the most damaged during the ship's long period of abandonment. Without them, the ship wouldn't be able to move, let alone engage in battle. They were the ship's heart and soul, the key to making everything work together. But as Jack began his work on the control systems, he could feel the weight of his decision pressing down on him. This wasn't just about fixing a ship anymore. It was about something much bigger. The Sovereign's Wake could be a weapon, and in the wrong hands it could bring chaos to the galaxy. Jack wasn't sure if he was ready for that responsibility, but there was no turning back now. As he finished the final adjustments, Jack stepped back and took a deep breath. The ship was alive. The engines hummed, the weapons powered up, and Althar's voice filled the ship once more, now calm and steady. You have done it, Jack Creel. The Sovereign's Wake is whole again. It is yours to command. Jack looked around the control room, taking in the sight of the mighty warship he had brought back to life. He had done it. The Sovereign's Wake was no longer a forgotten relic of the past. It was a force, ready to make its mark on the galaxy once again. But as Jack sat down in the captain's chair and felt the ship come to life beneath him, he couldn't shake the feeling that the real journey was only just beginning. Jack Creel sat in the captain's chair, staring out at the stars through the viewports of the ship. The mighty warship hummed with life, its once dormant systems now pulsing with energy. The reactor was stable, the engines were roaring, and the weapon systems were fully operational. For the first time in centuries, the ship was no longer a forgotten relic of the past. It had been reborn, and with it, Jack's dreams of proving humanity's worth to the galaxy had been realized. But with the Sovereign's wake now in full working order, Jack felt a deep sense of unease settle over him. This ship, once an instrument of war, was a force to be reckoned with. And though he had revived it to show the galaxy what humans could accomplish, Jack was beginning to realize the true weight of the responsibility he had taken on. Althar's voice echoed through the ship's systems, steady and ever watchful. "You have awakened the Sovereign's wake, Jack Creel, but now you must face the consequences. This ship was never meant to be a tool of peace. Its power will draw attention, and there are those who will not hesitate to destroy it, or you, if they see it as a threat." Jack nodded silently, his fingers drumming lightly on the armrests of his chair. He had known this moment was coming. The Sovereign's wake was a weapon, and the galaxy's powers were not going to ignore it. But what other choice did he have? He couldn't just let the ship rot in a scrapyard forever. Humanity had been underestimated for too long, and this ship, this weapon, was his way to prove them wrong. "What do you suggest, Althar?" Jack asked, his voice steady but filled with uncertainty. "You must leave this system immediately. There are factions who will come for the ship as soon as they detect its reactivation. The best course of action is to hide your movements until you understand what you are up against." Jack didn't need to be told twice. He had spent enough time in the scrapyard to know that the galaxy's major powers weren't going to let something like the Sovereign's wake slip through their fingers. He didn't have much time before the hunt would begin. "All right," Jack said. Looking at the control console in front of him, he ran his fingers over the smooth surface, activating the ship's navigation systems. "Let's get out of here." With a press of a button, the ship's engines roared to life and the vast warship slowly began to move. The Sovereign's wake was huge, far larger than most ships in the galaxy. It crept forward, its massive size casting a shadow over the quiet scrapyard. As it passed out of the dead zone of the system, Jack felt a strange sense of liberation wash over him, but that sense of freedom didn't last long. The moment the ship jumped into faster-than-light travel, Jack knew something had changed. The Sovereign's wake had been dormant for so long that no one had expected it to be revived. But now the galaxy would be watching. It wasn't just a matter of Jack's own survival. The future of humanity's place in the galaxy was at stake. As the ship traveled through the stars, Jack ran simulations on the control panel, trying to assess the situation. Althar was guiding him, but the AI's warnings about danger were beginning to ring louder in his ears. "There is no avoiding it, Jack Creel. The Galactic Coalition will soon take notice of the ship's movements. Their response will be swift." Jack was already considering their next move. He couldn't simply hide. The Sovereign's wake was too powerful, too distinctive. It would be noticed no matter where it went. "Do you have any suggestions on where we should go?" Jack asked Althar, his tone more serious now. "There is a system on the edge of the galaxy, far from the core worlds. It is mostly uninhabited, but it has the resources to repair the ship further. There, you can hide while you assess your options." Jack glanced at the star chart on the display. The system Althar suggested was in the farthest reaches of known space, where few traveled and even fewer cared to venture. It was a perfect place to lay low for a while. "We'll go there," Jack said, setting a course for the system. He wasn't sure if it was the best choice, but it was the only choice he had for now. The journey was long, and as the Sovereign's wake sped through the stars, Jack couldn't help but think about what he was doing. Was he really ready to carry such a heavy burden? The ship was powerful, yes, but it was also a target, a giant target. And while Jack had fixed the Sovereign's wake, he wasn't a military leader. He was a mechanic. What did he know about running a warship, let alone leading a rebellion? As the ship approached the edge of the galaxy, Jack spent long hours in the control room, tinkering with various systems, trying to familiarize himself with the ship's operations. Althar was always there, guiding him, offering advice, but it was clear that Jack was on his own now. "I will not interfere in your decisions, Jack Creel," Althar said one evening as Jack worked on the navigation system. "But I must remind you, this ship is not meant for peace. You cannot expect to use it simply to hide. The galaxy will come for you, and you must be ready to face them." Jack paused for a moment, glancing up at the shimmering stars outside the viewport. He had heard the warnings, but now they felt more real than ever. The ship, though alive with power, was an ancient weapon, one built for conquest, for domination. But that wasn't Jack's goal. He wasn't interested in starting a war. He just wanted to show the galaxy what humanity was capable of. "I'll be ready," Jack said quietly, more to himself than to Althar, "but I don't want to start a fight. I just want to make sure we're not forgotten." After several days of travel, the Sovereign's wake arrived in the remote system. It was just as Althar had described, mostly empty, with only a few small mining colonies scattered across the moons of a gas giant. Jack set the ship down on a barren moon, far from any eyes. He knew this would give him some time to think, some time to plan, but even in this far corner of the galaxy, he couldn't shake the feeling that danger was closing in. It wasn't long before Jack's suspicions were confirmed. A small unmarked vessel entered the system, its sensors clearly scanning the area. The ship was fast and nimble, and it didn't belong to any faction Jack recognized. But it was clear that they were looking for something or someone. "Jack Creel," Althar's voice echoed in the control room. "We are not alone." "You have been located." Jack stood up quickly, his heart racing. It wasn't a surprise, but it still sent a cold chill down his spine. He hadn't thought the galaxy's powers would find him so quickly. Whoever these people were, they didn't look like they came to trade. "Any ideas?" Jack asked, already preparing to take action. "Prepare for battle," Althar replied. "The time for hiding is over." Jack's fingers flew over the controls and the ship's weapon systems powered up. He wasn't sure what was coming, but he knew one thing for sure. This was only the beginning. The Sovereign's wake had been reborn, and the galaxy wasn't going to let it slip through their fingers without a fight. The moon where Jack had hidden the Sovereign's wake was quiet, too quiet. After the initial scans by the unmarked vessel, Jack had been on high alert. The small, nimble ship hadn't come too close, but its sensors had clearly picked up something. Jack had no intention of staying hidden for long, but the way it moved made him nervous. He wasn't sure who it was, but he was sure they weren't here to offer a friendly handshake. "They're not going to leave us alone, Jack Creel." Althar's voice echoed from the ship's systems. "It's only a matter of time before they contact others. You cannot hide in this system forever." Jack nodded as he watched the distant vessel on the radar. It was small but fast, capable of scanning vast distances with ease. It was only a matter of time before the real trouble arrived. "I know," Jack said quietly, his fingers hovering over the console. "But we need time. Time to figure out who's after us and why. If I run, we'll be a target forever." Althar was silent for a moment. The AI, for all its knowledge and power, could not deny the simple fact that the Sovereign's wake was a huge target. It didn't matter how far they traveled or where they hid. The ship's signature was too unique, too powerful. It would never go unnoticed for long. "The sooner you leave this system, the better," Althar said finally. "But I understand your need for answers." "The choice is yours, Jack Creel." Jack stared at the star map displayed on the console. The system they were in was a quiet one, far from the heart of the galaxy. But still, there was no escaping the fact that they had been located. The ship's size, the strange power that it emitted, it made them stand out. Even now, Jack knew that the unmarked vessel wasn't just a random ship. It was part of something bigger. Then the unexpected happened. A message appeared on the communication screen. It wasn't a simple transmission. The message was encrypted and the language was unfamiliar. Jack's heart skipped a beat. He knew it wasn't just some passing ship. This was something serious. Someone was reaching out to him. The transmission came through and a voice filled the room. "Jack Creel, captain of the Sovereign's wake," the voice said, smooth but firm. "We have been tracking your movements. You've made quite an impression waking up an ancient weapon, but that ship is no longer just a relic. It is a symbol, and we cannot allow it to become something more." Jack's hands clenched around the armrests of his chair. Whoever this was, they didn't sound like they were asking for peace. "I don't know who you are," Jack said, his voice steady despite the tension rising in his chest. "But if you're trying to stop me from using this ship, you've got another thing coming." The voice chuckled, but it wasn't a friendly sound. "You misunderstand, Jack Creel. This isn't about stopping you. It's about stopping the chaos that will follow. The Sovereign's wake is not just a ship. It's a force that could destroy everything in its path, and we cannot allow that to happen." Jack's pulse quickened. He was beginning to understand that this wasn't a negotiation. Whoever this was had the power to make things very difficult for him. I'm not interested in destroying anything, Jack shot back. I just want to be left alone. To show humanity's worth? You misunderstand, the voice repeated, colder this time. The Sovereign's wake is too dangerous for anyone to control. You may think you can wield it, but you are merely a mechanic. This ship has the power to shift the balance of the galaxy, and that cannot be allowed. The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving Jack staring at the blank screen. His mind was racing. Who were they? What did they mean by shifting the balance of the galaxy, and how did they know so much about the Sovereign's wake? He looked around the control room, his fingers tapping nervously against the console. Althar, he muttered. Who was that? I do not know, the AI responded. But I believe they are part of the galaxy's governing coalition, a powerful faction that maintains control over the galaxy's systems. If they are aware of the Sovereign's wake, it is only a matter of time before others come to investigate. Jack let out a long sigh. He had hoped to stay under the radar, to quietly prove humanity's potential without attracting attention. But now it seemed the galaxy was about to take notice in a very big way. His thoughts were interrupted by a loud ping from the radar. Another ship had entered the system. This one was much larger than the unmarked vessel that had first found them. It was unmistakably military, its sleek shape cutting through the stars with ease. It was a cruiser, a warship, and it was heading straight for them. Jack, Althar said, its tone grave. They have arrived. You have no choice now but to confront them. Prepare for what is coming. Jack's mind raced. He didn't have the firepower to face off against a cruiser, especially not with the Sovereign's wake still in its early stages of reactivation. But running wasn't an option. He had nowhere to hide, no time to make an escape. The only choice was to stand his ground. All right, Jack said, standing up from his chair and moving to the command console. Let's see if we can make it through this. Althar, power up the weapons. Weapons are online. Shielding is at 43% capacity, Althar replied. Not great, Jack muttered, but there was no time for hesitation. He couldn't afford to waste any more moments wondering what to do. The cruiser was closing in fast. Jack took a deep breath and pushed the throttle forward. The Sovereign's wake lurched into motion, its massive form slowly turning to face the incoming cruiser. The ship was powerful, but it wasn't invincible. Jack would need to be smart. Every move counted. He flicked a switch, activating the forward plasma cannons. The ship rumbled as the weapons powered up, the massive guns aiming at the incoming cruiser. Jack, Althar said, they are sending a warning transmission. I recommend you do not engage them directly unless absolutely necessary. They will not hesitate to destroy you. Jack glanced at the transmission screen. A message was incoming, but Jack didn't need to see it. He knew what it would say. The galaxy's powers were here, and they were not going to let him get away with this. I'm not backing down, Jack said, his voice determined. Prepare for combat, Althar. We're not going down without a fight. The moment the cruiser fired its first shot, Jack didn't hesitate. The Sovereign's wake returned fire, its weapons discharging with a violent burst of energy. The space between them erupted in a storm of light and sound as the two ships exchanged fire. Jack gritted his teeth, focusing on the controls, trying to dodge the incoming blast while keeping his ship's weapons locked onto the cruiser. Althar's voice rang through the ship's systems, offering tactical advice, pointing out weaknesses in the enemy's attack. Engage the aft shields, Jack. They are targeting the weak spot. Adjust course to 45 degrees to the left. Jack followed the instructions, his hands moving faster than he thought possible. The battle raged on. The Sovereign's wake wasn't a sleek fighter, but it was powerful, and Jack knew how to use it. The fight was far from over. But Jack had a new sense of resolve. He wasn't just fighting for the ship now. He was fighting for his right to control his own destiny. The Sovereign's wake rocked under the violent barrage of enemy fire, its hull creaking under the pressure. Jack's knuckles were white as he gripped the controls, guiding the ship through evasive maneuvers. The cruiser, a sleek warship designed for swift strikes, had superior firepower and speed. But Jack had one thing it didn't: the sheer unpredictability of a mechanic in command of a ship with weapons unlike anything the galaxy had seen in centuries. Shields at 25%. Althar's voice reported, calm as always, despite the chaos around them. We cannot continue taking hits like this. We need to strike back, Jack. Jack's heart was pounding, but his mind was clear. The cruiser's energy blasts were tearing through the shields, each hit rattling the ship, shaking it like a leaf in a storm. Jack knew they couldn't survive many more direct hits. He needed to make a move, and fast. The Sovereign's wake was a giant, not a fighter, but it had power. "Get the main cannons locked on," Jack said through gritted teeth. "We're going to give them a reason to stop chasing us." The massive plasma cannons on the ship's forward sections powered up, the energy swirling within them. Althar provided the precise targeting data, marking the cruiser's weak spots. Charging the main cannons. "Jack, ready in 5 seconds." Althar's calm voice cut through the tension like a beacon of focus. Jack's fingers flew across the console, checking the ship's remaining systems. The enemy ship had an advantage in firepower, but they didn't know the Sovereign's wake like Jack did. They didn't understand how to use its full potential, and that's where Jack had the edge. Main cannons are online. Althar's voice held a hint of something like satisfaction. "Firing in 3, 2, 1. The Sovereign's wake shuddered as the cannons unleashed a blast of energy that tore through space like a lightning strike. The beam shot forward, faster than any ship could dodge. The cruiser attempted to evade, but the shot connected with its side, sending a massive explosion blooming in space. The force of the blast rocked the enemy vessel, sending it tumbling away. "Got them," Jack shouted, though his voice was filled with a mix of adrenaline and disbelief.
"Keep the pressure on, Althar."
"Target the engines." "Targeting the engines now," Althar replied. "The cruiser's shields are regenerating quickly. We will need to maintain this offensive if we are to disable their propulsion systems." Jack didn't need to be told twice. He adjusted the ship's trajectory and fired another round. But this time, the cruiser was prepared. The incoming energy beam collided with their shields, and the ship groaned under the pressure. Jack could feel the Sovereign's wake shuddering beneath him. They weren't out of danger yet. "We have incoming reinforcements." Althar's voice was sharp, warning Jack just in time. "Another fleet of warships has arrived." Jack cursed under his breath. More ships? It didn't matter how much firepower they had. The Sovereign's wake was a force of its own. But it wasn't invincible. Jack knew they couldn't keep this up for long. They had to find a way out. He scanned the star chart in front of him. There was no nearby ally, no safe place to hide, but there was a distant asteroid field. It was their only chance to shake the enemy. "Althar, set a course for the asteroid field," Jack commanded quickly. "We'll use the terrain to our advantage. Prepare the rear cannons." "Understood." Recalibrating ship's trajectory. Althar acknowledged. As the Sovereign's wake surged forward, Jack focused entirely on the controls, steering the massive ship toward the asteroid belt. The cruiser and its reinforcements followed, determined to destroy the ship. The asteroid field was dense, full of dangerous space debris that would be a perfect place to lose their pursuers, but only if Jack was careful enough. He maneuvered the ship with a precision that surprised even him. The Sovereign's wake was huge, but Jack had spent weeks learning its systems, its quirks, and now it felt almost like an extension of himself. The asteroids came closer, their jagged forms floating in space, spinning slowly in the vacuum. Jack dodged through them, the ship's large form swerving, banking, and twisting to avoid the deadly rocks. The enemy warships followed close behind, but the asteroid field was a perfect place for the Sovereign's wake to hide. Jack led them into a thick cluster of asteroids, hoping to lose their trail. "We've lost visual on the cruiser," Althar reported after a tense few moments. "But we are not yet safe. The enemy will continue their search. They will not give up so easily." Jack's breath slowed, but the reality of the situation hadn't changed. They were still under attack, and there was no guarantee that this asteroid field would be enough to save them. The hours that followed were filled with tense moments. Jack knew that hiding would only work for so long. Eventually, the enemy fleet would break through the field, and they'd be right back where they started, facing certain destruction. Jack had to find a way to escape and find allies. He wasn't just fighting for his life anymore. He was fighting for humanity's place in the galaxy. As they neared the edge of the asteroid field, Jack looked to the communications console. There had to be someone, somewhere, who could help them. The Sovereign's wake was an ancient ship, but it was a symbol of something new. Humanity's potential, its strength, its ability to rise above. He wouldn't let that be destroyed without a fight. Jack's hand hovered over the console, and then he made a decision. "Althar, send a broadcast, a message. I want the galaxy to know who we are." Sending message. Althar's voice had a tone of curiosity. "What message shall I send, Jack Creel?" Jack took a deep breath. He didn't know if this was the right decision, but it was the only one he had. "Tell them who we are," Jack said. "Tell them that humanity will no longer hide in the shadows. We will fight for our place in this galaxy." The message went out, and for a moment there was silence. Then a reply came. "This is Captain Leora Cade of the Coalition Forces." The voice was stern but calm. "You have awakened a great power, Jack Creel. You have proven that humanity is capable of more than we imagined. But you must understand your actions cannot go unchallenged. We will help you, but only if you prove that you can control the power you wield." Jack's heart raced as he listened to the response. For the first time since the Sovereign's wake was reactivated, Jack felt a spark of hope. Someone was willing to listen. Someone was offering a chance to make things right. "You will have our support, Jack Creel," Captain Cade's voice continued. "But you must come to us. We are ready to negotiate a new future, one where humanity is no longer cast aside as irrelevant." Jack smiled for the first time in what felt like ages. There was a future, after all. And it was a future where humanity could rise to meet the galaxy on its own terms. "Thank you, Captain Cade," Jack said, his voice filled with relief. "I'll be there. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity is capable of." As the Sovereign's wake powered up its engines and left the asteroid field behind, Jack felt a new sense of purpose. The battle was far from over, but it no longer felt like a battle to survive. It was a battle to reshape the future. The Sovereign's wake wasn't just a warship. It was a symbol, a beacon of humanity's strength, its potential, and its unwavering determination to rise when others said it was impossible. The galaxy was no longer just a vast, indifferent expanse. It was a place where humanity would find its voice, where it would make its mark, and where it would no longer be forgotten. Jack Creel was ready to face whatever came next, knowing that the ship he had brought back to life had the power to change everything.